So you're tired of D&D, right? Well, let's play its super heroic cousin, Mutants and Masterminds. Superheroes are more popular than ever, and with D&D bringing innumerable players into the market, there's now a space for new players and new games to form. And that's what the point of this video is going to be. I'm going to teach you how to play Mutants and Masterminds in a couple easy videos. So let's start generally. So Mutants and Masterminds comes from a D20 background. So it's closest to something like a True 20 or a 3rd edition D&D kind of aspect, and it plays incredibly similar. You can jump right in from Dungeons and Dragons to Mutants and Masterminds. It's different from D&D in the fact that D&D has a clear progression from a level 1 to level 20 and provides clear options in a standard format. So I reason D&D is a little more like a school. You're going from 1st grade, you're going to 2nd grade, you're going to 3rd grade, and they aren't throwing multiplication tables at you in 1st grade because you're not going to get it. Now, Mutants and Masterminds understands this, and it is a little more of an art than a science. So Mutants and Masterminds is like a supermarket where everything is available to you right from the start. So there's a lot of opportunity to buy out the whole store, or you can just purchase what you need, which is something I like about games that aren't quite as similar to D&D, in that you get a ton more freedom of choice in these games, and they're not necessarily going to hold your hand. So Mutants and Masterminds is perfect for that, particularly if you're a very creative or kind of artistic GM or player. So let's get into the basics. So like I had said before, it's played predominantly with D20s. You're not going to need any other type of dice. You can have 2 D20s, 3 D20s, and you can keep them for your entire campaign and for future campaigns, and you'll be fine. So it's all played off of just 2 dice. Combat and skill checks follow a very similar pattern to 3rd edition D&D, where rolling a d20 and then you're applying your skill or ability modifiers to a check, and you have a slew of penalties or modifiers that you can use to improve the roll. And then combat follows similar vein. So we're dealing with initiative, rolling for initiative, rolling attack versus defense, damage versus saves. So if you're coming from a D&D background, this is going to be old hat to you. Now, unlike D&D, all of this is going to be contained within the power level system. So it's kind of like, I put it as a quasi-scaling measure that the game master applies when they play the game. So in order to prevent you from pouring everything that you can into a single area, like accuracy, so that you can make your character easily abusable by being always accurate, you're doing trade-offs. So for every thing that you improve, you weaken something somewhere else, which I really like about this game. So you're not really going to be seeing a wizard who has a 10th level spell that, with just the right roll, completely negates the need for a fighter. There are characters like that in Mutants and Masterminds, but there are plenty of ways to counter and subvert them. So we'd mostly be dealing with accuracy versus damage. The stronger you are, the less accurate you become, and vice versa. Then we're also dealing with defenses versus saves. So the more evasive your character is, means that there's a chance they're going to be a lot less durable, and the more durable they are, the higher the chances that they're going to be taking more frequent hits. So it all kind of balances out, where you fill a certain role or class like you would in D&D, but it's a little more freeform. Another huge change coming off of other D20 systems and D&D are the use of power stunts and hero points. So what we're doing with Mutants and Masterminds is we are emulating a Bronze Age comic. And if you're not familiar with Bronze Age, it's right around the late 60s, early 70s, so we're dealing with classics like Chris Claremont's X-Men, we're dealing with Teen Titans, we're dealing with Spider-Man, where characters aren't as infallible as they are in other eras of comic book storytelling, and there's a lot of problems and complications, which is a mechanic in the game, that come with being a superhero. And to mitigate that, we have power stunts. So I know in other games like Dungeons and Dragons, the rolls of the dice can sort of make or break an encounter, and one really good roll or really bad roll shifts the entire game for a GM. And power stunts are there to mitigate that. So reflecting the kind of loose continuity of comics, power stunts allow you to bolster roles or create new abilities as you see fit. You can do things like you can edit a scene to include a device that you can use to escape later. So you're using these to kind of step into the GM's role for just a brief moment and kind of step outside of the ordinary rules to do something that makes sense for the narrative. And the next step for this point is hero points. So hero points are generated directly from the complications, and they're meant to demonstrate your abilities as a hero. So hero points are a little harder to come by, but if you manage to fight against the problems that come with being a superhero, you can use them to directly alter the flow of the game by doing things like allowing you a free reroll, make a game master's planned encounters a little bit easier, and on the opposite side a little bit harder for your enemies if you so chose. So all of this is done as a means to forego the hard number crunching and the so be it nature of a normal D20 system to allow it to be so much more freeform and creative. Because at the end of the day, Mutants and Masterminds is both a combat simulator like traditional D&D, but is also a conflict resolution game that you'd find in a lot of indie or even narrative-based role-playing games, which is honestly why it's one of my favorite games. You can play an entire campaign without having to throw a punch if you so chose. So it doesn't sound too hard, right? Well, I hope you join me for future installments of videos while I go over the character creation process, offer extra tools to help players and GMs get more acquainted with the system, and generally demystify some of the harsher aspects of the game. As always, I'm your GM, Evan. Thank you so much for listening, and stay tuned.